Liverpool won the league. So no fret at all. Lots and lots of positives to discuss from today's game. So happy that Steve and Sean are still with me. Loads of positives to take from that game, Sean. What stood out for you?
Yeah, I think in how we kept the ball, how we moved the ball. I think when the game went into another gear in the second half, I think we showed that gear that we have. I think what we look at is being able to how we stay compact. Obviously, Liverpool pushed and pushed. I think we need to work on in terms of. I found that Walker was in narrow and didn't have that support sometimes. So I think that was something we need to work. I think that's something that we need to look at. But again, for me, I thought how we kept the ball, we moved the ball. I think there's going to be that connection with De Bruyne and Haaland. I know that's going to happen. I know it's going to happen with Mahrez as well. So still a lot of things to be positive about. I got the result right, but wrong team.
Oh, Sean, you always find a way of making it positive. I like that. Steve, in terms of pre-season, that was Liverpool's 5th pre-season game so far. I believe they also have a closed-door friendly that they're playing tomorrow as well. We've only had the 2 games so far, that being our 3rd. Do you think that made a difference at all? Did you think there was anything there in the fitness levels?
I think there will be a difference in the fitness levels. I mean, obviously now you've got the sports science aspect of everything and where players is he on the red line and all this kind of thing. You can kind of predict injuries and stuff like that. But I definitely feel as though having that extra few games helps. Of course it does. You know, that your touch, the movement, everything about a game situation is completely different to the training session. So, of course, it would have made a difference to Liverpool. But at the same time, as Goat said, you know, there was a big period in that game which I felt as though, you know, City dominated. Yeah, Liverpool had the spells, but you would expect them to because they're a fantastic team. But I think the positives out of this is the fact that I thought Man City dominated them for large periods of time. I think they were unfortunate. Look, 3-1, I think flat as Liverpool, to be quite honest. But that'll have hurt the Man City players, without a doubt. You know, of course, you've got 2 teams that's going to be vying for the title, and then plus you've got two strikers, you know, in the newspapers and all the media, which is Núñez and Haaland. Haaland misses a big chance. Doesn't score, Núñez gets a chance, scores. So I think individually it'll be hurting them and as a team. And I think the manager will use that to sort of say, you know now again how it feels like, let's turn this into a positive, and I think they will.
Another positive is we were all hoping for a debut goal and we did indeed get one. It was for Julian Alvarez, Sean. He came on as a substitute in the 58th minute and got his first goal for City. What did you make of his goal? Yeah,
I think he's the sort of player that gets involved. He ends up in a wide position, does a bit of skill, if you like, to get himself into that area. I'm pleased for him as a striker coming on because he'll be sat there knowing he's also a big striker and wanting to get more minutes. But the fact he's come on and scored, I think that'll be a huge thing for his confidence as well.
A big part of that goal as well was Phil Foden, who came on at the same time as him. Both of them came on in the 58th minute, linking up there for that goal. They both had a tenacity about them. They kept going. Phil Foden had the bit of skill, and then Alvarez was able to pounce on that loose ball, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, obviously both of them come on at the same time. The message from the manager is change the game, turn it back into our favour. And ultimately, both of them have done that. You know, when we first looked at it in real time, I didn't think it was offside, and then I didn't think the goalkeeper had getting, you know, full grasp of the ball. So I wasn't surprised that it got turned around. But of course, you know what you're going to get with Phil Foden. I mean, obviously, Goat is his biggest fan, and I'm not surprised because, I mean, let's be honest, he is a wonderful player. It's really the first time I've seen Alvarez that much. And I think, you know, it could be a star in the making. He does actually have the mannerisms, for me, a little bit like Aguero. You know, and if he's halfway near as good as Aguero was, then you've got an absolute top striker on your hands.
Yeah, I've desperately been trying not to compare him to him because it feels like an unfair amount of pressure on him. But that goal is 100% one that you could have seen Sergio Aguero scoring, Sean.
Well, yeah, I mean, strikers read these situations. Again, he gets his foot on the same time as the goalkeeper, so you know, Liverpool fans were probably thinking, no, it's not. But he gets himself there and earns that bit of luck. Once it comes loose, he pinches it through. Not a goal it's a goal. So you're pleased to get a goal when you haven't started a game. He's come on and scored a goal. He would love to score a goal outside the box or scream or something like that. But sometimes those are the quiet ways you make the entrance. As in, it's a game, it's a goal. He hasn't had 90 minutes, and he'll just look forward to the next game to keep making an impact.
So at that point, it's 1-1, and then we have the big talking point of the game, the penalty that is awarded for a handball by Ruben Diaz. Now, I'm really pleased that we have you in the studio, especially today, Steve. Before we go on, just quickly tell everybody, remind everybody, the other job that you have.
Well, I work for the Premier League. I'm what's classed as a Premier League delegate, so I assess the Premier League referees. I don't look at them in terms of laws of the game, but how are they when they run the game, with the reaction with players, and looking at it from a footballer's point of view rather than an ex-referee's point of view. So we had a big discussion in London a couple of weeks ago, and obviously the handball situation was one of the things that we discussed. I mean, with that one, is there any intention from Diaz? Absolutely not. But will referees class that, or some referees, because I still think it's subjective. Because, again, we might say it's a foul or not a foul. You might say it's handball. I'll probably say it's not handball, or vice versa. We've all got different kind of ideas of what we think. But my personal opinion is I don't think there's any intention there. But they'll look at it as though his arm's in an unnatural position. But then again, I think that's subjective, because what's natural to you could be unnatural to me. But ultimately, he's gone across there and decided to give the penalty. I think it's a bit harsh. But having said that, if I want to play devil's advocate and be like kind of neutral, if I can be, I think if that ball hits Van Dijk's arm, we'd be asking for a penalty. I think we would.
I think it just continues to highlight, it's the first game of a new season, Sean, and it continues to highlight how confused we all continue to be with this law. And exactly what you've said there in terms of the subjectivity of it.
Yeah.
Because for anyone that hasn't seen it, the ball is coming in, Diaz is in the air. So how is your body supposed to be if you are defending in the air, other than, his arm was...
Yeah.
And my issue as well with it, Sean, sorry, is that the ball was going wide. Núñez heads it, and the ball is going. He's not going to score that goal. That is going wide.
Yeah, I think for me, his hand's in a natural position. I think when you launch your foot to reach for a ball, your hand essentially comes up in this position, and this is where his hand is. So as the ball comes back across and hits his hand, it's in the natural position from his original stretch, and so. But totally understand, if it hits Van Dijk's hand, I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, it's a penalty on today's rules. I don't like the handball today because, again, you could be in a position where you've honestly gone for a ball with your hand, with your foot, and the ball's come back off a player and hit your hand, and they're saying it's a handball, and it's like, my hand's in a natural position. Where else can my hand go if I'm launching or stretching for a ball? So, but again, if it's the other way around, I would win a penalty as well.
I think the difficult thing is as well, and this is the first game really of what's going to be a long season, and this is throughout the leagues, not just the Premier League. Obviously, Craig's given that. Craig Pawson, he's given that when he's being told to go to the pitch side monitor. I think the thing which fans are pulling their hair out with is the fact of how it's inconsistent. So that might not be given in 2 weeks' time, or it might be given, and then you'll see a blatant one which is not given, and then we all think it's a penalty, but for some reason it's not given. And I think that's the frustrating one. But as I said, it all boils down to subjectivity. But I don't know. I mean, when we spoke about it in a meeting, it's just where do you draw the lines of like that's a handball, that's not a handball. Was the intent? Is there not intent? It is very, very difficult. But unfortunately, I mean, in some ways, that's what makes football great.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what would we do with our time if we weren't having these long debates? I would just like to go back to when it was, if you've stopped a goal being scored because you've handballed it, then it's handball.
Yeah.
But hey, that would still be subjective indeed, wouldn't it? So looking ahead to next week then, obviously this is the last pre-season friendly that we have. We start the Premier League season next Sunday, Sean.
Yeah.
A difficult first game, so we'll be playing West Ham away.
Yes, I think it will be a tough one, but at the same time, when I look at today, De Bruyne going off, I think is a good thing to save and protect, because he's that mentality that is like, we want to win this game. And sometimes as a player, because you desire to win, you can injure yourself. So I think it was a good move to pull him off and protect him, to make sure he's around, obviously, and playing for next week. But looking forward to it because, again, the amount of minutes that we got, that period, somewhere around the 80 minutes, I saw we had another gear because we were pushing. And that'll be all good in terms of the energy levels and the fitness levels for the players. So West Ham will know that it'll be a very tough game.
Do you think it'll be a similar starting 11, or do you think Foden or Alvarez have played themselves into the starting 11, Steve?
I think both of them have got a chance. I think... I think we spoke about it at half-time, and we'd sort of said about both Mahrez and Grealish, they have to come into the game a little bit more. And whilst we didn't think the manager would make any changes, probably in 10, 15 minutes he might. He did, and it was them two. Yeah. So it wouldn't surprise me if was it Sunday when City play? Then those two lads are starting and the other two lads are not. And I think sometimes the manager, because they cannot really go and knock on his door and say, listen, Gaffer, I'm not happy because of A, B and C. He'd be like, well, look, you had an opportunity. The shirt was in your hand. You didn't perform. You know, you had a top club. You have to perform. If you don't perform, you're out.
In terms of defence, Sean, Nathan Ake obviously started today. John Stones was on the bench.
Yeah.
What defensive lineup do you think we may have next week?
You know, I tend to think that players who have had 70-plus minutes are the ones he'll go with because we haven't had a lot of games, and that he'll trust that they'll get through 80, 85, or even 90 minutes of the game. So I would like to think that, you know, when I think about the defenders, I'm thinking Diaz. I know Ake's had a full game today, but not quite knowing the fitness of Stones, I think, is interesting. So I could see Ake and Diaz starting again, because again, it's the fitness levels that when you're in the first game, you don't want players out there that really can't last the distance because you'll get found out.
In terms of the season as a whole, from what you've seen now, so 3 pre-season games for City, other teams having more pre-season games. Obviously, we've seen Liverpool up close and personal today. Steve, do you think Liverpool are still our main rivals, or are you popping anybody else in there in contention for the Premier League next season?
I think you've definitely got to say Liverpool. I mean, as I said, when we looked at the team, and that was without Núñez in it, you know, it was a super strong team. I said the game when either side had spells when they were on top. But I mean, I'm not too sure you can look into, you know, how pre-season games go. Because for me, I think for the vast majority of my teams, it's all about getting your fitness. When you have top teams, you want to win, as Coach had said earlier doors. I think Arsenal have been quite shrewd this season as well in the summer with Mikel Arteta. Obviously, a couple of players from Manchester City. So they look decent. I think they've had a really good result again today against Sevilla, which are not a bad team. But for me, it's always going to be between Liverpool and City. But what will Man United do? Obviously, with a new manager. What will Chelsea do? New owners and stuff like that. So it's, I'm looking forward to the season, but I can only really see 2 teams in it.
And we need to mention Spurs as well, really, Sean. Obviously, they've had a really interesting summer in the market.
Yeah, it's interesting because you got Harry Kane around. You think, well, you know, quality player and what he can do and what he can produce. I tend not to think, you know, even with the players they got, the manager they've got, I tend not to think that they'll be amongst the top 3. I think they will be pushing, but I think they'll fall away. I think it'll be a bit too much. I'm more intrigued to see what United, because I know that manager had Ajax playing some really good football, and United's always had good players, but they've just never played collectively. So interesting to see what he's able to do with United. But I agree with Steve. I think that, you know, between Liverpool and City are the 2 teams that will be pushing in terms of the title.
Exciting season ahead again. Also, we have an exciting end to our show, as it's time to reveal the last number 9 in our new game. Gents, have you had a chance? Have you worked it out? Pep's second signing? Has anybody given you any clues while I wasn't looking?
No.
I haven't had a clue.
I
haven't had a clue the whole game, Sean, have you?
I haven't got a clue. I thought about looking at my phone, but I thought, no, I'm not going to. I'm going to use my brain. And I've got nowhere.
Well, absolutely loads of our viewers at home got it right, so congratulations to you all. Obviously, you're all shouting right now at your screen. The answer is Nolito!
Oh, wow. My word. You know what?
Tip me tongue.
Yeah, because he's like a winger. That's why it never come to mind.
Well, you should have told us. I would have gotten it with the info, just like
Oh,
that Bunglehall
believe
one.
me, I didn't know.
Well,
Yes.
Steve, Sean, thank you so much for joining me today for the Matchday Live Community Shield game for this season. And thank you all for watching us and for what is hopefully going to be the start of another absolutely incredible season. And don't forget what I said, Blues. We lost the Community Shield last year. We went on to win the league. That's what really, really matters. So Matchday Live will be back next Sunday before the West Ham game. Kel will be here with you. In the meantime, get yourselves onto City Plus and enjoy the first episode of our new Champions Again Together documentary.
The strategy is the plan. We follow them convinced.
It's always going to be difficult. You know, he was Mr. Aston Villa.
His little fill-in.
I'm thankful to everyone who helped me in that period.
We cannot do the same again.
That's an allegation I don't agree with.
In that area they are so good. Tac, 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 Lukaku.
It's a huge week for City. They've got Chelsea away, then they've got PSG away, and then they finish the week at Anfield, which is probably just about the hardest week in world football.
I hear you. The most is when you don't want the ball.
Jesus turning and scoring!
You got one as well.